Vayse. Welcome to Vayse, a podcast about weird stuff. I'm Peter C. Hine, and joining me as always is my old friend and co-host. He's an entity that I've encountered regularly on and off for 30 years. He's an earthbound spirit. He's supposedly capable of human-like vocalization. He's an extra clever podcaster. He's a ghost in the form of a podcaster. He's personally told me that he's a freak. He has hands and feet. And if I actually saw him, I'd faint. I'd be petrified, mummified, and turned into a pillar of salt. It's Mr. Stephen James Buckley.
So you said no one would get where you were coming from with that intro, but I did get it, and the reason I got it is because I have another tab open here with part of that highlighted. So yeah, I do.
Well, if there was one person who was going to get that,
it'll be the person who's done his research before this episode. So anyway, back to business. So here at Vayse headquarters, we make no secret of the fact that we love weird little guys. And one of our favourite examples of those is little Gef the Talking Mongoose. So hopefully you've all heard of him. He's a character we've been wanting to talk about since pretty much day one of Vayse. And our guest tonight is a paranormal investigator and a writer of both fiction and non-fiction who has written for Spooky Isles, the Association for the Scientific Study of Anomalous Phenomena, I knew I was going to struggle with this. The Association for the Scientific Study of Anomalous Phenomena's Strangely Strange magazine and the Lancashire Anomalous Phenomena Investigation Society, aka LAPIS, website, as well as various peer-reviewed academic journals relating to her work with the NHS, and probably loads more as well, but time is of the essence here. She lives in the northeast of England with her husband, Ben. Interesting sidebar, Ben has been a national lard eating champion for the last 3 years, and that's a whole other episode. And a collection of taxidermy which she compares to that of Grandpa from The Lost Boys, a reference that we obviously are going to enjoy. So like all the best people, she's a member of our Discord, and as soon as she mentioned her work surrounding everyone's favourite little critter, Gef the Talking Mongoose, we knew that we needed to get her in for an interview. So even though this isn't live, please extend a warm welcome to Gayle Fidler. Hi, Gayle.
Hi, Gayle.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And the intro was amazing.
Do you
Gef
think
references.
So?
We love Gef. Yeah.
Yeah, we're all about the Gef.
Yeah.
I really wanted to ask just straight away about the lard eating stuff, but I think we should save it to the end because we can't go straight there because it'll like alienate our fan base. I think,
Disgusting. Yeah.
it's a bit too rich for some. But yeah, so
there's a lot in that we need to unpack as well.
So let's unpack there.
Yeah,
We'll leave that for later. Did you watch the video?
I did actually. I watched it just before. Yeah. Do you know there was less lard than I expected. I expected a large physical amount, but I guess it's a very dense food, isn't it? So you don't need a lot to.
There's probably only so much you can eat without being physically sick, I would imagine.
Yeah.
When you're talking about lard.
Obviously, we're on camera here, so we can see each other, but people listening won't see this. Gayle is doing a face of disgust whilst talking about it. She's like, she does not look.
I'm
proud.
Disgusted but proud. I am proud, but I'm disgusted. It's kind of a mix of both. So yeah,
both can exist. Yeah. This is the nuance that we love to explore here on Vayse. The Peanut King exists in that area between black and white.
So Gayle, I guess we'll start where we always start. Tell us how you got into the wonderful, weird world of weird shit.
Just weirdness. So. As you said in your intro, I live in the northeast of England, in County Durham, and it's an absolutely beautiful area for anybody that hasn't been up here. We kind of border Northumberland, Yorkshire, Cumbria. It's absolutely gorgeous. We've got seaside, we've got forests, moorland, loads of history and archaeology. So there's castles everywhere. It's just beautiful. So I lived in a village pretty much in the middle of nowhere. And I was really lucky because I grew up in this really remote farmhouse, which was a really old farmhouse. And from being very, very small, I encountered lots of weird stuff happening in the house. But because I'd lived there all my life, for me, it was just sort of normal. It was just natural.
What kind of weird stuff were you experiencing there?
So my earliest memory that I'll talk about was I must have been sort of preschool, and my bedroom was being redecorated. So I was sleeping in my parents' bedroom on a camp bed, and my mum had put me to bed this particular night, and I thought she'd gone downstairs, and she'd left the bedroom door open. So I looked out onto the landing, and I saw this black figure. We had it was an old farmhouse, so we had white Artex walls, and there was this black shape of a person stood on the wall, and I just assumed it was my mum after she'd put me to bed. So I shouted goodnight to her, and there was no reply. So I shouted again, and there was still no reply, and I thought, it's a bit strange why she's ignoring me. And I got a little bit upset about it, actually. I must have been about 3 maybe at the time. Anyway, this went on for a couple of minutes, and I decided to sort of get out of bed and investigate. And as I got up and looked, there was just a black humanoid figure on the landing, like a shadow. And no mum, she was not there. It was just this figure. So I kind of ran back into bed and pulled the duvet over the blankets over my head. So that was the first thing that I can remember. But we had just loads of strange stuff. We used to hear children running up and down the stairs. We had baby monitors, when you could hear children playing in the baby monitors when there was nobody in the other rooms. And it wasn't just me, it was people that came to visit, it was other relatives. So when I had friends come to stay, they would refuse to go to the toilet on their own. We would have to put the lights, keep the lights on at night. And I loved it, I thought it was great. My friends hated coming over because they were terrified. But yeah, there was a lot went on in that house. But to me, as I say, it was just, apart from being scared of the figure, that was the only thing that I can remember being scared of. Everything else was just kind of, I don't know, just normal, I think. So yeah, that was kind of my introduction to living in a really strange house.
Yeah, I mean, that is familiar to me because I think I've talked about it on Vayse before, but I saw shadow figure, like the dark man, on the landing of my childhood home as well.
Yeah, and I think it wasn't until I kind of discovered Darren Mason's work on Spirit Box. I'd not really thought of it as a kind of a dark man entity. It was just a ghost. That was all I could kind of put it down to. It was the spirit of a dead person that had obviously died in the house. And it wasn't until I started kind of looking to things a little bit further that I actually changed my thinking and thought, was it that? Is there something else going on in that house? You know, is it actually spirits of children that we can hear, or is it, you know, fae? Is there some sort of more, you know, folkloric explanations? And I've never investigated it. I've never looked into it in any way because it was my childhood home and I kind of love those memories. They're very magical and I wanted to stay like that.
How did that carry on through to your adult life? Did you continue to have that kind of regularity of occurrence with this kind of thing, or did it taper off after childhood?
I think so. When I got to, I think when I was about 12 years old, I saw the pilot episode of Twin Peaks, because up until that point, as I say, everything had just been very black and white when it came to ghosts. So they were, you know, what you read in books and kind of the dead. And then I ended up watching the pilot episode of Twin Peaks, and to be honest, it completely changed my life because I saw in that something, I was like, this is something different. This is magic, which I didn't really understand that concept at the time. And when I watched it and I went back to school the following week and everybody was talking about it, and I started talking about it with my friends. And from there, we started to get some really weird kind of Twin Peaks synchronicities, which I didn't know that's what they were at the time. It was just, oh gosh, we're watching Twin Peaks and odd things seem to be happening. And then as I grew up, probably into my 20s, I kind of did the same where, you know, you start a career, you get the house, you have kids. And I kind of just stopped being not interested in all that stuff, but I guess I didn't really have time for it because life takes over. and other things become more important. So I didn't start really probably looking back into this stuff until probably within the last 20 years. How old am I? 10, 15 years. So, yeah, life kind of just took over. So, yeah, and as I say, probably in my 20s, like nothing weird happened at all that I can think of.
Yeah.
It wasn't until much later that once I got that interest back, that it started again.
I mean, that's quite a familiar story, isn't it? Something that, again, that we've heard before. I know that for me, it was a similar thing. You know, I think I had some weird experiences as a kid and maybe a bit as a teenager. And then through my 20s, you know, when I look back now, there was some weird stuff going on, but a lot of that was, like, I don't know where the line is drawn between actual paranormal experience and just some sort of weird Catholic personality crisis and drugs and alcohol, all mixed together. But I mean, it really wasn't then until, really until Vayse again, you know, so just before I turned 40 that I kind of refound that side of my life.
Do you think we could rewind a little bit and ask you about some of these Twin Peaks synchronicities? Because that's...
Yeah, do you know, it's really weird because when I was a teenager, so I wrote all of this down. So I kept a diary from being about 12 into my, I'd say till I was about maybe 20. And they're in the loft. And I keep meaning to get Ben to go up there and get them. And there will be loads of like teenage angst and just horror that I probably don't want to relive. But there's definitely some really... I think, if I'm remembering correctly, some really weird stuff in there. So at some point I am going to send him up there to get them out. But it was mainly, it was like having, it sounds really mad, but like a supernatural stalker. And some of it could be explainable, I don't know, but it would be things like, so this is in the days before mobile phones. It was in the days before 1471 where you could ring back. And I would come home from school, walk in the house, and the telephone would start ringing. And I would pick it up and there would just be like static on the line. And there'd be nobody else in the house. And then, because my parents were divorced, so then I would go to my dad's house. This was happening at my mum's, and I would go to my dad's, and the same thing would happen. And then I would kind of mention it to friends, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, that's happened to me." And I did at one point get this really weird Valentine's card that might have come from an actual person. I'm not saying it was anything supernatural, but I never figured out who it came from. But it was really horrific and it was quite threatening. And we never did figure it out. And it was almost like it was written to Laura, which sounds really weird. And again, it was probably one of my friends or somebody, but they all denied it. So yeah, there was just, I don't remember a lot of what was going off, but I just remember there was a lot of weirdness.
I think
at that
like
time.
when you watch something like that that is so potent, it kind of almost puts you in like a mindset where you notice things because you know where you notice things that maybe otherwise you might have thought, oh, it's just this or it's just that, but it kind of locks you into that sort of mindset, doesn't it?
Yeah, that psychotropic type of artistic experience. And I mean, that's sort of almost like an initiation at that point, isn't it? But that reminds me, because at the moment, Buckley, you're reading the Mothman Prophecies.
I'm rereading Mothman Prophecies. Yeah, I was going to say the phone calls reminded me of a kind of that kind of John Keel thing. But then you can imagine that was an initiatory text as well for some people.
Yeah, and that happened to Keel when he was at the heart of a synchronicity storm, didn't it?
Yeah, that he was getting all that stuff going on. It's and I guess like I'm most of the way through Joshua Cutchin's Fourth Wall Phantoms, and he's talking about like incursions from fiction into reality and you know things like that. And it's like I guess you've got that thing there with the crossover with like a story and the power of the story and the fact that these things could be made of stories.
Yeah,
so
I need to read
Fourth
Wall Phantoms. It's on my list.
It's amazing. It's amazing. It's really, really good. But it's like, I think it's like probably the closest thing to like a grand unified theory of the paranormal that I've read. It's where I'm at the moment, if you see what I mean. I feel like this is the best explanation I think I have at the moment. But anyway, I guess what I'm saying is like that you've got this idea of like a story whether it be kind of, a folk tale or, the modern version of a folk tale like Mothman or even something like Twin Peaks, it sets off something in people, and it can tweak people and turn a switch in the head and completely change their life.
Which is what I think like the role of myths were, like what I'm reading at the moment, Greek myths, legends, just the classic ones like Perseus and Medusa and all that kind of thing. And I'm sure that they would have had a similar effect on the people at the time, that sort of, I mean, it's all just stories again and again, isn't it? Just stories over and over, I think. So,
did you experience anything when you watched Twin Peaks: The Return? I assume you've seen that.
I did. And do you know what? I should have written, because at the time, I don't think I wrote it down, but I just remember just getting this whole, again, this host of synchronicities that I can't remember what they were, but they were all very linked, and it was like one after the other after the other. And it would just be like strange things, like I was watching it and my daughter she'd text me some music, and it was Fleetwood Peaks. They'd done a mix of Twin Peaks and Fleetwood Mac, and she texted me that, and she didn't realise I was watching part of The Return. I don't know. Yeah. So there was definitely some weirdness there.
Yeah.
And maybe you were more susceptible to it because you'd grown up with it.
Possibly.
How did you find your way back to the weird stuff after you saying that you kind of lost the thread in your 20s and your 30s?
When the children got older and I had a little bit more time, I joined a local paranormal group, Otherworld Northeast, which is unfortunately, they're not together anymore now. And I just I wanted to just really see what was out there and see what was going on and kind of, just meet other people that had that interest. So I joined them and went to a couple of meetings with them and kind of did some research and some bits and bobs. So that was kind of a gateway into it. And that's when I kind of started writing and doing some genuine bits, really. But there was no kind of major, like, oh my goodness, moment where it's like, right, I've got to get back into that world. It was just like having that time. And I started going to conferences. So I went to the Weird Weekend North conferences, which are in Warrington, which is how we ended up on the Gef adventures. So it was just kind of meeting other people with the same interests that led me to going down that route, I guess, and just having more time.
And how did you find Vayse, most importantly?
Yes, this was really weird synchronicity, sort of. And it might be one of these things. I was listening to What Magic Is This when they were talking about synchronicities T-shirts. And they were talking about synchronicities. And one of the comments was other people's synchronicities are really not very interesting to other people. So I was like, oh, God, I've got all these synchronicities, but nobody's probably going to be excited by them apart from me.
Well, we asked.
So I was really late to the party with podcasts. So I don't even know why. I just had not discovered podcasts until a couple of years ago. And then I came across, it was Darren Mason, Spirit Box. So I started from the beginning and obviously had lots and lots to catch up on. So I used to put it on when I was kind of, doing stuff around the house. And one day I'd had it on in the sitting room and Ben was sat playing on his Xbox, my husband. And it was the episode with you guys on it.
Oh,
yeah. So we listened to that and we were like, these are really, I think you mentioned Twin Peaks, which probably pulled me in. Yeah. So we listened to it together and we were like, these guys are really cool and they're really interested in what they've got to say. And we kind of, really interested in their ideas. So I went online and found Vayse. And so I went back to the beginning. So this must have been last September. It was last September.
Right.
And started at the beginning of your episodes. And we had this really weird synchronicity with one of your early episodes.
Right.
So
I'm scared.
It was So it was, I don't know which episode it was, and I should have listened back to it, but it's the one where you'd gone to London and you'd met some musicians, Stephen.
Yeah.
And you'd had this kind of synchronicity storm.
Yeah.
But in that episode, as we were listening, you mentioned Steve Davis, the snooker player.
Yeah.
And for some reason, when you said that, I don't even know why we did it. Me and Ben just looked at each other and we were like, oh, that's a little bit weird. I don't even know why we picked up on that. Anyway, finished the episode and it was a Sunday afternoon. And we decided that we were going to go for a walk in the local forest. So I've been using the English Kabbalah, and I use it when I'm doing, when I get a lot of synchronicities, I kind of just chuck them into, because I've got an app on my phone, and just, I get quite sometimes I get some interesting hits.
Yeah.
So I'd put the name of the forest in there a while ago when I was doing some other research. So I knew what it kind of came out as. Anyway, we went for this walk this particular Sunday afternoon. It was raining. There was nobody in the forest because it was a really rubbish day. And we'd had my stepdaughter with us. So me and my stepdaughter were walking along and we just, from nowhere, heard this like weird metallic grinding noise. And we both stopped and said, what was that? Because there's nobody about. Ben hadn't heard it because he was sort of hanging back a bit. And anyway, we thought that's a little bit odd. We went on our walk and then decided to go back to the car. Couldn't figure out what the noise was. As I say, there was nobody around. So we got back in the car and we're driving through the forest. And as we're driving along, there was a little clearing at the side of the road. And I shouted to Ben, stop the car. And he was like, what? And there was a women's lace basque hanging in the tree, like quite high up, as if it had been placed up there. And I was like, there's some women's underwear hanging in the tree. That's a little bit weird. So I don't even know why we stopped to look at it. I can't even explain it. It does sound really dodgy. So we pulled up and as we got out of the car, we see this like trail of women's underwear going through the woods. And it's brand new. It's got supermarket tags on it, but it's like placed on this trail and the trail splits two ways. So Ben follows it one way. I like split up. I don't even know why we split up, because why would you do that?
Rookie error.
Yeah, I know. So we've got all this like women's underwear guiding us on this weird trail through the woods, split up, and I'm walking along following it. And I honestly thought I saw this figure in the woods. And I thought I'd found a dead body. I could just see this huge human-sized body, like shape in the woods. And I'm like, oh my God. So I screamed for Ben and like he come running over. And I was like, I think this trail's led us to a dead body. So you need to go and check it out because I'm not going down there. I'm really scared. So he goes like off and looks. Anyway, it's not a dead body, thank goodness. It is a human-sized teddy bear in the middle of the woods in a tractor tyre that's propping it up, that is led to it by a trail of women's knickers, with tags on. And it's obviously been there for some time because it's all like mossy and weird. So we're just like, right, this is too weird even for us. We just need to get out of here. We don't like this anymore. So we kind of like legged it out of there, got back in the car, go back home. And I'm like, oh God, this is really strange. And I put the word teddy bear through the cipher and it came out with the same number as the forest. So I'm like, okay, that's a little bit strange. Anyway, I'm just going through Facebook and I'm scrolling through. And somebody that it's one of these people that you have as friends on Facebook that you kind of met a few times but don't really know. And I don't even know why we're friends, but you are. And one of their posts pop up and this person says, oh, I had this really random night last night. It was really good. I went to this music festival, but weirdly we met Steve Davis, the snooker player. And I said to Ben, oh my God, you need to read this post. And Ben's like, oh, okay, that's a little bit of a weird coincidence. And then I put Steve Davis, do the cipher, and it comes out with the same number as the teddy bear and the name of the forest. I was like, no, I'm done now. I'm done.
Oh,
that was
shit.
too weird.
That's fascinating. I have to admit that I was hoping that in the clearing in the forest with the women's underwear,
Yep.
Steve Davis would be.
I was thinking like a feral Steve Davis, like a Bigfoot tiny Steve Davis, just all like naked and hairy and sort of prowling around, like eating berries and like that was.
He
that
might
was,
be, because
he
we
might
just
still be.
we legged it out of there, so
Yeah.
you never know. And we've not
Yeah.
been back. I don't know. Has he gone
mean,
missing? I don't know.
But, you know, personally, I'd just like to apologise for potentially putting that set of, inadvertently putting that set of events into motion, because that's pretty. But it is that thing where when that sort of thing happens, it like you were saying about the you know, it's boring hearing other people's synchronicities, but actually with something like that, when it's completely absurd, that's when it's like Hine said before, that's like when it's more believable actually, because it's like when it's almost it's like, it's not like you saw a trail of bones and then there was like, you know, some bats and you know it's not it's like it's just so completely odd.
It was just so random.
Yeah, that there wasn't a feral Steve Davis in the woods,
Yeah.
but like I you know,
Yeah,
it was
just
still a
really
good
odd.
story though, you know. It was still a good story.
So so I listened to more of your podcast after that, and we were just like, well, and that, I think I found your Discord that night. I was like, oh God, I need to find these people because clearly there's something weird going on. So yeah.
Well, yeah, there's definitely something weird going on. That can be our review. I think we've beaten around the bush for long enough. I think we need to get into Gef territory. I think we should do a brief, Gayle should do a brief intro to Gef for those few listeners who maybe aren't familiar with the little guy.
Yeah, could you recap the story of Gef, please?
Yes. So in 1931 on the Isle of Man, there was a very remote farmhouse, a place that was called Dawlish Cashen, or Cashen's Gap, as it's known as in Manx. And this place is, it's very isolated. It's on the top of a hill. And it had been quite run down for some time. And it was bought in 1916, I think, by a family called the Irvings. The Irving family had come over to the Isle of Man from Liverpool. When they'd been in Liverpool, they were quite a well-off family. James Irving had been a piano salesman. They'd been a relatively middle-class family. They'd had quite a bit of money. And then during the war, something happened to the piano company. I think it was to do with tax. And he lost his job. So he decided to invest his money in a property on the Isle of Man. And he'd started another company at that point in time. He decided he was going to go into engineering while he did the property up and then sell it as an investment. But unfortunately, that never worked out. So he ended up moving his family into this very remote farmhouse. A complete change for the family. As I say, they'd come from this kind of, town in, Liverpool, quite cosmopolitan, to suddenly becoming farmers. He had no farming experience, but he just decided that, he was going to give it a go. So they were living there. They had another daughter. The two eldest children moved out. So it ended up just being James, Margaret, and Vorry. So Vorry gets to about 13 years old. So we're now in 1931. And strange things start happening up at the farmhouse. And it starts off initially when the Irvings are in bed. They would hear rappings and things being thrown and scratchings. And that began to then escalate into a voice. And then the voice began to speak to them. And he started initially with sort of babbling and very kind of like baby-like noises. and Jim Irving began to communicate with it, and it began to talk in full sentences. So Jim Irving was not a kind of a, he didn't believe in ghosts and all of that. So he decided that he had an actual talking animal. He thought it was possibly a weasel or a ferret at the first. And he thought there was this genuine little animal that was living in the house, talking to them. They didn't see it for some time. Eventually, they did claim to see it. And eventually, news of this strange talking animal kind of went around the island. It ended up going over to England, and the press got involved, and they sent a journalist over who then claimed to also have spoken and heard the creature. Eventually, the creature decided that he was going to be called Gef. He liked the name Gef and named himself Gef. And the story went on for quite a few years, and he became part of the Irving family. So he would live with them. He would talk to them at night. He would kind of go into the local town and report back on things that he'd seen. So he would go to the bus station and he would get gossip from the local bus drivers and then report it back to James Irving. He stole a bus driver's sandwiches. He got up to sort of all sorts of naughty tricks around the area. He would kill rabbits for the family to help them, and they could sell them and make some money from them. He helped them around the farm. And news of this eventually got down to Harry Price, the psychic investigator, who sent a man up to come and kind of study the case. And Harry Price eventually came over himself. He wrote a book about it, about the case, and kind of the conclusion, although he doesn't really say it, is that he believed it was a hoax and the family were making it up. And then Nandor Fodor, the Hungarian parapsychologist, went out, and Nandor Fodor had a different conclusion to Harry Price. Fodor believed that there was, like Jim Irving had initially believed, that there was a real little talking animal who lived in the house with the Irvings. So yeah, that's a kind of a very whistle-stop.
Why did they think it was a mongoose? I mean, did he say that he was a mongoose?
Yes. Well, so the initial mongoose thing came from when it had originally hit the press. Somebody had written a letter into the press. So there was a farm just down the road called Airy Cushlin, which is where we stay when we go out to the Isle of Man. And this place is amazing. I'll talk about that in a bit. But the farmer that had Airy Cushlin in 1912 had bought a load of mongooses and actually released them on the farm to keep the rabbit population down, because there's no natural predators for rabbits, so there's no foxes on the Isle of Man. So he'd released all these mongooses, and this guy wrote into the paper saying, actually, this creature sounds like a mongoose. So yeah, that's where the mongoose thing originally came from. And Gef actually said that eventually. Initially, he was a weasel. I'm a ghost in the form of a weasel. He's very contradictory as Gef and what he is.
Could you explain as well, because I realise that listeners who aren't in the UK might not have much of a concept of the Isle of Man, because I've been to the Isle of Man, and it reminded me of kind of like a small area of the Lake District that floated off, populated by weird Scousers. No offence to the weird Scousers who live in the Isle of Man. But could you give a slightly better and probably more politically correct explanation of what the Isle of Man is and what makes it special and what makes it odd?
It's possibly the most magical place I have ever been to. So before we started investigating Gef, I'd never been. None of the group that go out there on our little Gef expedition had ever been out there. And there's just something otherworldly, old about it. They very much have this ingrained folkloric belief. So there's lots of talk of, they talk about, we can't say the fairy word because they're themselves are the good people. It's bad luck to refer to them as fairies. They don't like it when we don't want to piss the fairies off. But, those beliefs are everywhere. So they have a fairy bridge that's actually labelled as the fairy bridge. And I think that's one of the most famous, I think you get it on postcards and stuff of the Isle of Man. So when they have the TT riders will go to the fairy bridge and they'll, ask for luck.
So for listeners, the TT is basically, it's a small, how big is the Isle of Man? It's only a few miles, isn't it?
Yeah, off the top of my head, I can't remember, but it's you can do it in an hour.
Basically, there's a road that goes all the way around it, isn't there? And the TT race is a motorbike race, and they basically close off the island for is it a week? I think. Well, it's 2 weeks, isn't it? Because that's how I came to go there. Because when I was about 22, I think my band played the warm up week to the TT races, and we did the Laxey Blues Festival, the Big Wheel Blues, which is there's a very famous water wheel over there that you see on the postcards and stuff, and it's just this amazing place. And they used to just put a tent up and have some bands play in the tent and that sort of thing. So we just all kind of piled into a van and spent a couple of days. Well, there's only really Douglas and Ramsey, isn't there? The two they're towns rather than people. But there's basically two towns, isn't there? Sort of one on either side, and then there's a road that goes round.
And it's also between England and Ireland.
Yes, so it's in the Irish Sea.
Yeah, so you've got a lot of the Irish folklore and stuff involved, I guess.
I mean, the folklore over there is just so much of it. It's so rich in folklore, and it's got a really rich history. So there's a big Viking history, and it's really kind of ingrained into the culture. They've got their own language, the Manx language, which not a lot of people speak, unfortunately, now, but I believe there is one school there that still teaches it. They have the Manx cat, which, if you haven't seen one, it's a tailless cat that I think you only get them on the Isle of Man. It's a fantastic place.
It's got a really cool flag. It's like 3 legs in a spiral. It's like one of the coolest flags I've ever seen. Like all the other flags.
It's a very strange place, and to think that it's got so much character, considering it's such a small place, is really amazing.
It's I know for me, I think you're the same, Hine. We first encountered Gef through the Usborne Book of Ghosts.
Yes,
because it was in there, and it always kind of weirded me out a bit, because it seemed like this isn't a ghost, it's an animal. It kind of seemed a bit jarring, and it's only kind of as I got older and kind of learnt more, or at least read more about high strangeness and how it operates, that it kind of made sense.
Well, exactly. I mean, it was probably my first example that I ever encountered, I think, and it was there in that Usborne Book of Ghosts, of high strangeness, because I remember reading it at the time. I was thinking, even then, as a kid who believed in everything, I was thinking, Gef the mongoose isn't real. Because why would a ghost be in a mongoose? Yeah, it's silly. Yeah. It's too weird. And now, like Buckley was saying before, it's that absurd stuff, the stuff that's a bit more weird, that I tend to attach a bit more belief to. How did you first encounter Gef?
I think I must have read about him in one of the books as a kid, but I don't remember which one. And I didn't really know much about the story until we were at Weird Weekend North in, I'm going to say 2019. And Christopher Joseph, who is an amazing researcher and writer, was there, and he did a presentation about Gef. And he's written a book, which is called, it's Gef, The Strange Tale of an Extra Special Talking Mongoose, which is it's the Gef Bible. So he has gone into so much detail about the case. So I say we heard this talk, and we were just like, we need to go and look into this.
Yeah.
It's too weird to. Yeah, Gef pilgrimage, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, in case listeners haven't twigged yet, the Hine's introduction to me was actually a series of quotes that Gef said about himself. How he described himself. Yeah, so he described himself as an extra clever mongoose, an earthbound spirit, a ghost in the form of a mongoose, and he once said, "I'm a freak. I have hands and I have feet. And if you saw me, you'd faint. You'd be petrified, mummified, turned into a stone or a pillar of salt," which is, I don't know, it's a pretty extreme thing to say, that, isn't it?
No, there's really a bit of hubris there from
but
it's good to have a powerful self-image like that. I'm learning about that at the moment. Keep your energy high. petrify people, be a freak. Do it as you want. I've just looked it up, and the Isle of Man, it's 33 miles long and 13 miles wide, so that is absolutely tiny.
Okay.
Yeah, very, very small.
Yeah.
So it's a tiny little place.
And I think like the, I don't know, there's something about like Gayle, what you were saying about the magic of the place and the sort of power. And I sometimes feel like when a place is small, it's almost like in a way it kind of becomes more concentrated.
Yeah, nowhere for the weirdness to hide.
So you took your interest in Gef a little bit further. Can you tell us about that? What happened?
Yeah, so after we'd heard Christopher's talk, we went to the pub, a few of us that were at the conference, and we just came up with this idea. We were like, right, that was brilliant. Let's go to the Isle of Man and look for Gef. That was how it happened.
Yeah,
I love it.
Unfortunately, that was 2019. So the plan was to go the following year, which was 2020. Obviously, it never happened. So the first trip wasn't until 2022. So yeah, there was 7 of us, I think, originally. There's the kind of a core group of 6 of us that have been every year, and then with the 7th person's kind of been interchangeable. So we had a group of 7 of us that went out there on the first Gef pilgrimage in 2022, and we've been back ever since. Yeah.
And have you seen him ever, or heard him, or spoken to him?
We haven't, unfortunately. We haven't heard him or seen him, but we're still looking, and we're going back next year.
Looking.
So
yeah. Can you actually go in the house? Is that still there? You say?
So the house isn't there anymore. Unfortunately, it was knocked down in 1971. We don't know why it was knocked down. But yeah, it's completely gone. And if you didn't know,
terrifying mongoose in there.
Yeah. Or the government were like, we don't want people knowing about this.
The cigarette smoking man came.
Yeah.
Well, actually, so that's a theory that we've got. Because when you go to the Isle, when we first went to the Isle of Man, I thought it was going to be like Loch Ness, and I'll be able to buy like Gef souvenirs everywhere. I said to Ben, I'm going to get tea towels and fridge magnets and all the crap. And when we got there, I was really surprised because nobody on the Isle of Man, bear in mind that they are so superstitious, everybody that we spoke to were just like, yeah, it's a hoax. And
but that's what they would tell you.
But exactly. So we're like, there's more to this. Yeah.
They're trying to, it's like the...
it's a cover-up.
Yeah, it's like the classic kind of folk horror trope of like the newcomers come to the town and then everyone's like, no, trying to put them off, but actually they're hiding a deep secret.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a hoax, or what do you think it is?
I don't know. I mean, we can't rule it out, and we're never going to know what it is. Unfortunately, everybody that was involved is no longer with us. I'd like to think it isn't, and I think if they were hoaxing it, they had no reason to hoax it. I think this is the hardest thing to kind of unpick. I mean, they lost, so they didn't make any money out of it. They didn't charge for any interviews. I think they made a little bit. Nandor Fodor had sent some money over when he stayed with them just to kind of cover board and lodgings. They lost money on the house when the farm was eventually sold. And Vori was kind of bullied, ostracised at school. So that, they didn't get anything. If they did hoax it, I don't know why they would do that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think with hoaxes, again, back to the Cutchin book, he talks about how hoaxes can often lead to an actual thing happening, and what might start out as a hoax can eventually somehow lead to, kind of what's actually becomes like a real manifestation or whatever.
Yeah, like that UFO flap that Greenfield talked about.
Yeah, I was going to say, like Allen Greenfield, I mean, when he was on the show, although the audio was absolutely atrocious and very hard to listen to, he did say to us, there's no such thing as hoaxes, like, because obviously he's from that old school kind of Grey Barker kind of, prankster, trickster kind of
trickster spirit.
Yeah. So he's kind of coming at it from that kind of magical point of view as well. If you think about the idea of, loosely speaking, make fake it till you make it kind of side of magic, where the idea that you would act as if you are this or you are that in order for things to happen and stuff like that. And it's like, that's not really much different from someone hoaxing something and then that becoming a reality, and you just wonder, did Gef start out as a hoax and then turn into something
more?
Yeah.
Because you've had some strange experiences around Gef, haven't you, Gayle?
We have.
Are you happy to talk about those strange experiences?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So more synchronicities. So we did have some really strange things. We have, every time we go out there, more weirdness happens. And it's kind of Gef related. It's not Gef. Well, it might be Gef, coming to see us. But so the first year that we went out there, everybody that we'd spoken to outside of our kind of paranormal bubble world, when we spoke to family and friends and said, we're going to the Isle of Man to look for talking mongoose, they were like, what? And thought, yeah, all right then. And nobody had heard of Gef outside, as I say, the people like us who kind of look into these things.
Select few.
Yeah. So when we'd got there and we'd interviewed quite a few people, we'd kind of gone into shops and museums and stuff and talked to people. And as I say, everybody was very much dismissive, like, oh no, it's a hoax, it's a load of rubbish, blah, blah, blah. And I'd got in touch with the local radio station and said, look, we're over here for a week and we're looking into the Gef story. Would you be interested in doing an interview with us? And I had this lovely reporter get back in touch and she said, yeah, absolutely. She would do an interview with one of the team, which she did. And we'd kind of put a plea out to say if anybody wants to talk to us or knows anything, get in touch. And I think we were on the island for 6 days that time. And the interview didn't air as kind of a couple of days before we were leaving. And we thought, that interview is not going to air before we've gone, which is going to be a shame if anybody does get in touch, because we'd have to do it over the phone, etc. So anyway, Ben and I had decided that we would stay on for a few more days because we just loved the island so much and we didn't have to be back at work for a couple more days. So we stayed a couple of nights extra. And the day that everybody else had left, we went to the pub and Ben had gone inside to get a drink. And I was just scrolling through social media because it was the first time I'd had phone signal for a while. And it just popped up that within the last hour, there was this big film announcement that Simon Pegg was starring in a movie about Gef the Talking Mongoose. And I was like, what? This is insane. So that film, we've had quite a few weird synchronicities related to the film. The following year, the day we got home, the trailer was released for the film, which again in itself was just a little bit odd, but it could have been, again, timing. 2024, we didn't get any film synchronicities, but weirdly, I didn't realise until yesterday that the theatrical version of the film in America actually dropped on the 1st of September 2023, which is today when we're talking about the film.
Yeah.
So there's a synchronicity for you. But then the weirdest one was this year. Two of our party, Richard and Jackie, had been invited to do another podcast just before Christmas, the Folklands podcast. So they went and it was nothing at all Gef related. I think they were just talking about, Richard had just released a new book and it was about high strangeness. So they went down, they did this podcast interview, got on with the two guys that were interviewing them, decided to go for lunch after the interview was over. And somehow they ended up talking about the Isle of Man and talking about Gef and saying, oh yeah, we've been on this expedition, blah, blah, blah. And it turned out that one of the guys that was interviewing them in the podcast was one of the main actors in the film. So that was a bit weird. So they ended up joining us this year and came over and did a couple of days kind of interviewing us and going to look at the places. So we had the guy that played Jim Irving in the Simon Pegg movie come with us and go up to Jeff's house. And yeah, it was very strange and very surreal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's mad when that happens, when it feels like just everything is kind of connected and it's like shit, you know.
Yeah.
And then you try and tell it back and it feels, I think, like over time, like the time, the distance in time from when it happened, it kind of fades in intensity somehow. But at the time it feels like, holy shit, I'm in the middle of something here. That and just something interesting like that I've just picked up on. So I noticed, Gayle, that there's a little pirate on your t-shirt.
Yeah.
A little pirate skull. So me and Hine were talking about a pirate just 2 days ago with a bandana and a gap in his tooth.
And weirdly, I saw someone dressed as a pirate today. In Asda at the checkout. So and I was like, that's unusual. You don't often get people dressed as pirates.
And of course, there's the guy dressed as a pirate on Under the Silver Lake as well, which fulfills the Vayse bingo of me mentioning Under the Silver Lake. So
the pirate thing. So me and my husband we are pirates. So we do a lot of...
You are pirates?
We are pirates, sort of. We don't go out and steal ships.
You download music illegally?
No, we don't do that either. But we do... we're part of a group up in Berwick that raise money, would dress as pirates and raise money for charity. And we had a pirate wedding, and my husband does shanty singing, and he dresses as a pirate. So yeah, that's why the pirate logo's on my t-shirt.
That's awesome, and that's so mad that we were just, because we were talking about, like I said, we were up a mountain, like looking out over the Morecambe Bay on Saturday morning, talking about pirate imagery.
Yeah,
that's weird.
Yeah. The other weird thing is the Isle of Man being 33 miles long, because 33 is that number that has come up in absolutely everything for me recently. But it also reminds me, because obviously 3 by 3 is 9, and there was that number. Are you happy to talk about 171, which is also 9? Because that came up in significance in relation to Gef as well, didn't it?
It did. So yeah, 171. So I was doing some research after one of our expeditions. I think it was last year. It was last year. And looking at some of the more, we'll say, seedier characters that were kind of involved. The case had kind of attracted some strange people to it. And there was some strange people living on the island at that time, kind of just sort of pre-Second World War. But one of the things that had really interested me about the Gef case was when Nandor Fodor had come to visit. Gef had disappeared off to this place called Ballamore Estate. So Ballamore Estate is about 20 miles from Dawlish Cashen. So it's quite a long way for Gef to go, but that's not unusual. That he did often get on the bus and go wherever he was visiting and spying on people. But when he went to the Ballamore Estate, which is it's a big stately home at the other side of the island, it's a huge place. And Jim Irving claimed that he'd never been there. Vorry had never been there. They were a different social class from the people that owned it, so they had no connections with the estate. And Gef came back and told Jim Irving that he'd seen all these things. So he listed all the things to kind of verify him visiting this big house. And there was loads of them. And he was very, very insistent that Gef tell Nandor Fodor all of this to verify his trip, which I found a little bit strange, because if Gef really wanted Nandor Fodor to believe him, why didn't he just go and speak to present himself to Nandor Fodor and say, here I am, So I thought that was a little bit odd. Anyway, Fodor and Irving go to Ballamore Estate and they verify, I think, about 80% of Gef's claims that, what he'd seen was genuine. And I just thought, there's something a little bit strange about this story. The woman that owned it at the time, she died, unfortunately, a few months after this. And the house was bought by a chap called Alexander Cannon. He was a very strange guy. He was a psychiatrist at Colney Hatch Hospital in London. He treated Aleister Crowley's second wife. He was apparently treating King Edward just before he abdicated. He was a hypnotist. He was very much into kind of stage magic. And he ended up coming to the Isle of Man under, I don't really know what circumstances. I've just actually got copies of his MI5 files. He was on the MI5 watch list, and I've not read them through properly yet. Yeah, so he was a strange character, and there's definitely something odd going on with him. And he opened this private clinic on the Isle of Man, and he was accused of spying. They thought he was a spy. So I ended up just putting his name through the cipher, Ballamore Estate through the cipher. And I kept getting a few other kind of synchronicities that had come up. And I kept getting this same hit, 171. They just kept coming out as the same number. So I'd had some other weird synchronicities pop up in relation to stuff that Allen Greenfield, weirdly, had been posting online. And I thought, do you know what? I'm just going to get in touch with Allen Greenfield and just tell him this, and just to see what. I didn't really expect to get a reply, to be honest. So I just sent him this big long email of all this kind of weird stuff that had gone off with the number 171 and these various synchronicities that I'd found. And as I'm sending this email, I realised that Allen Greenfield's email actually contains in it the number 171. So I was like, oh no.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, no, I'm done now.
Greenfield will have absolutely loved this. Greenfield, he's quite an easy guy to summon. You just have to say "Hellier" 3 times into the internet, and he appears.
Yeah, and he's obviously a massive synchronicity generator himself.
Yeah, and he sent me a lovely email, which really it made me feel a little bit validated, actually, that maybe I'm not going mad and I'm not imagining things, and maybe there is something in this. Maybe it's, it could be another dead end, but actually, I might be going down the right lines. As I say, there's definitely some sort of weirdness, unsavoury characters that we might kind of, as my research goes along, but who knows where it's leading. So,
and is your intention to sort of keep on going with it and then eventually have something you can publish, or
that is eventually, yeah,
you'll have to keep us posted on that, because it's obviously an interesting route, and something which, like, I've heard stuff about Gef, obviously, but I've never heard it related to anything outside of kind of your standard ghost parapsychology or hoaxing kind of thing. But the fact that you're bringing some of the kind of synchro-mysticism and all of that Kabbalah, the number stuff, the Greenfield stuff into it is like an interesting angle. The Crowley angle as well, because you think about Crowley and you mentioned Loch Ness, Crowley and his link to Loch Ness, could it be almost like that someone like Crowley is seeding things around places, and
there's burlesque manner there as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's funny because I actually found an article that Crowley had been, so Alexander Cannon had gone back to England at some point, can't remember the date of the article, and had done this kind of stage magic display. I can't remember what he was doing. It was like rope tricks and all of this. And Crowley was in the audience and actually kind of criticises him and calls him out.
Typical.
But I don't know. You see, there's really interesting parallels between stage magic and ritual magic. And, like we were saying about the hoaxing and stuff like that. And I think, you can almost imagine Crowley doing that was part of the act. You can imagine there being some kind of sneaky thing where, I'll pretend to dismiss your ideas, and then this will happen, and then this will happen. You never know with a guy like Crowley.
Absolutely, and it's definitely something that I keep want to go down, keep going down that route. But yeah, we've got this other kind of weird synchronicities which were sort of Crowley related in regards to Chillingham Castle and this whole Alexander Cannon weirdness, which is the whole reason that I sent the email to Greenfield in the first place, because he kept posting about Chillingham Castle, which is in Northumberland. I don't know if you guys have been to Chillingham. It's amazing.
I think I did when I was younger.
And so Greenfield was posting about this on Facebook, and then that's why you thought...
Yeah, so we every year for about the last maybe 6 or 7 years, we go and we spend a week at Chillingham Castle because you can hire holiday apartments there. And we kind of use it as a base when we tour in Northumberland. So we just literally returned from there, and Greenfield posted this article about Chillingham Castle being haunted. And then a couple of days later, or a week or so later, there was another article, and then there was another one about ghosts of Northumberland. And I was like, this is just a little bit strange.
I'm sure we've had something like that before, where years ago, where something that we were talking about, Greenfield tweeted about.
Well, he did. He kept on doing articles about ghosts of Lancashire and haunted areas around where we are.
Yeah. Sorry, Gayle, I interrupted you there.
No, it's fine.
Carry on.
And then he posted this really, I'm going to say random, but it probably wasn't, this article about this guy called Matt Williams, who I have never spoken to in my life. He's an urban explorer and a UFO researcher. Never met him, don't know the guy, don't know anything about him, other than he's speaking at the same conference as me in November this year. So then Greenfield posted this article about him from 2 years ago. And I was like, this is weird.
Weird, yeah.
So that's why I emailed him.
Quoting Greenfield's web.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? And do you know, I've heard stuff like this before, and similar to the experiences we've had, and it's just like, there's something about Greenfield. Like, he's obviously an incredibly smart guy. Like,
pretty magical
when you talk to him, but there's more to it than just intelligence. Like, he's tapped into something.
So, when you think about Gef the Talking Mongoose, and it makes me think of other high strangeness that you can get in the British Isles, like Sammy the Sandown Clown. You mentioned the Loch Ness Monster. All of these things are kind of one-offs. You hear about ghosts all over the world. You hear about vampires all over the world. I mean, there's stuff like Nessie.
Yeah, I was going to say the lake monster serpent.
The lake
thing
monster,
is fairly,
maybe. But some of this stuff seems completely unique. The idea of a talking mongoose. There's only been one, as far as I know.
It's very specific.
The Sandown Clown. You're not too far away on the Isle of Wight.
It's quite a long way away. It's the opposite end of the country.
I mean, not geographically. I mean, I wouldn't want to walk or swim, but not geographically.
To an English person, it's far, but to an American, it's just like
it's part of the British Isles. What do you think these things are? When you get as long as these things aren't a hoax, and then we'll just dismiss that because we've talked about that. So we'll just say, all right, there could be a hoax. The people could be making things up. They could be dreaming. They could be hallucinated. They could have had a mushroom or whatever. But when you hear about these things, because you get them all over, there's lots of this weird high strangeness that you get, obviously, in the United States. You get it, the weird one-off UFO encounters, like the one that we always talk about with the smokeless grill and the pancakes and all that kind of thing. What do you think it is when you get this just one little burst of unique weirdness? What creates that? Or if it isn't a hoax or someone's imagination, what do you think that could be?
I don't know. It's a really good question. I think it's really difficult to kind of put Gef in a box and say it's this or it's this, because he has, and the other cases that you've mentioned have so many similarities, but yet they're so unique and so different. And you go through the list and you say, oh, right, he's a poltergeist because he's the stone throwing and the spitting and the noises. So he's got the poltergeist aspect. And then you've got this trickster kind of persona. So it's the trickster archetype. So is it that? Is it a fairy? Is it a djinn? And all of these different things. But then what are those things? I don't know. I don't even know what they are. So I really don't know. And I don't think we'll ever know. And
No. I mean, the
Yeah.
thing that me and Buckley talk about is, and I don't know what you think of this, but we talk about it quite a lot, is that idea, and it's an old idea, of the mind being unable to comprehend the energy or the entity or the creature that is
Yeah.
there in front of you, and instead grasps for something, grasps for anything to try
Yeah.
to make sense of whatever this thing is, and we talked about a bit about it actually when we were walking, because of the
Yeah.
connection to the Fourth Wall Phantoms, which I haven't read yet, but Buckley was giving me the lowdown on a bit of it, because it connects through to my experience with the Monster Munch monsters, and what AP Strange was talking about with those weird entities when he was a kid, and like the Mickey Mouse gloves. Your childhood mind in that case grabs onto whatever is there to make something make sense, even if it doesn't really make sense, to give it something, and in doing that it creates something completely nonsensical. But I find that idea really alluring, in that we are there, and because I've been reading a lot about the Neville Goddard idea, and the idea that all of creation has already happened, and it's our minds that are filtering out what is there amongst creation to create our worlds around us. And it makes sense that sometimes there might be like an error or a slip up in that, where you suddenly get something like Gef the Talking Mongoose just once in the whole of history. The Isle of Man has a talking mongoose, and it's there for a few years, and then it goes never to be seen again, and you can't even go to the house anymore. And it makes you wonder, whether there is something to that, whether there is, maybe that's what mysticism is, like a personalized, because people mocked them and people made fun of them, but what they were having was, or what they could have been having, is very personal experience and a very personal encounter with something beyond the everyday. That's what I find really interesting about cases like this.
Yeah, and I think when you look at the folklore, I mean, of the Isle of Man in general, but of that particular area, there is so much going off around there. And the site itself, I mean, Gef said that he'd been there for 20 years prior to 1931 without anybody seeing him. So Gef claimed to have been there a lot longer. There's history of the place being haunted, or whatever you want to call it, beforehand. There's burials around there. There was ashes found, and it's, is it a land spirit? Is it some sort of connection to the land? There's just a lot of things have been seen in that particular area. It seems to attract high strangeness around probably maybe about for the 10 miles in the surrounding area. So it's definitely a window area of weirdness.
Yeah, I mean, that is, you were talking about land spirits and things like that. I mean, that's the kind of thing that makes me think, like, are there entities out there that don't have a form, don't have a physical form in the way that we think of physical form, and so our mind has to create something for them. And so often when you have a UFO flap or something, someone has put into the mind of the people who experience it an image which becomes the image. Whether you're talking about Mothman, or whether you're talking about the weird drones that were, a year and a half ago in the US, in that UFO flap, or, back in the 50s with flying saucers, after the Kenneth Arnold thing, as if people have glommed onto something. Yeah. And then other times, these people, that they're in 1930s Isle of Man, they've never heard about UFOs. They might not have heard of land spirits or whatever, and so what they get is something else, a talking weasel, a talking mongoose, something, just whatever their mind can sort of make of all this weird energy and entity.
Yeah, because I saw on the Wikipedia that I think it was, let me have a look now, this is quality podcasting right here. One of the it was Nando Fodor said that he had like a psychological theory, and he believed Gef was a split off part of Jim Irving's personality.
Yeah, that is one of the things as well that he said. And that kind of, I guess it does make sense. So it could be that. And when you look at all the Gef information, most of it has come from Jim. He was very vocal. He was kind of the spokesperson of the family. He would recite all the notes back to both Price and Fodor. They'd asked for Vori if she could be, go off alone with them so she could be interviewed on her own, and he wouldn't allow that. So he was very focused around Jim Irving, so it would make sense.
And I mean, did he know that he was doing it, or did he not know? I mean, one of the things that's weird is as we've like to try to bring some cohesion to mine and Buckley's random witcherings through today, that is Gef seemed really reluctant to describe himself in a coherent or consistent way, didn't he? He was all these different things. He was a freak. He was a very clever spirit or whatever. He's an earthbound spirit. All these different things, but avoiding talking about what he actually was. And as you said, he didn't often refer to himself as a mongoose, even. And that makes you think. Like if whether that's a spirit or whether that's something that's living in someone's head. If it isn't a hoax. I mean, if it was a hoax, you'd think he would refer to himself as a mongoose a bit more, you'd think he would capitalize upon it. But no, he has all these weird ways of obscuring his own being, which I find really, really fascinating. And also Nandor Fodor, is that his name? Fodor. Fantastic name. What a fantastic
amazing
name. It's spelled like Ivor Shandor, isn't it? Oh, Ivor Shandor from Ghostbusters.
Well, I think they're both Eastern European.
Ah, of course.
But I think with sometimes with stuff like this, I wonder kind of what the result is. So what the, rather than look at Gef himself, what was the result of Gef on the people who experienced him?
Yeah.
What happened in their life because of that? And it's like almost like what. That's kind of almost maybe what matters is the intention. Did it open their minds more? Did it, like you were saying about, I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm tired, but
I get it because when you think about, like the burning bush, for example, in the Bible, just an episode of strangeness that, like catalyzed the forming of a religion, or the way in which someone may have a spiritual or angelic experience, which actually then changes the course of their lives. It's what I find compelling about shows like Danny Robbins with Uncanny is whether you believe what these people are saying or whether you don't believe it, they believe it, and the effect that it's had on their life is absolutely like undeniable. And I suppose the one way of seeing whether something is hoaxed or not, I think might have been where Buckley was going, is like what actually happened to their lives. Did it change them as people? Or did they carry on hoaxing, or did they go into seclusion, or did they start a religion? That kind of thing.
And then you think where we are now is like, we're still the ripples from that are still going, and now you've got someone like Gayle who is now seems to have just tapped into that same stream.
Yeah.
Because you
would never have caught those synchronicities if it wasn't for Gef, or you may have done, but it would have been due to Sammy the Sundown Clown or someone else, But it's whether or not Gef was a talking mongoose, you are getting something that's
you've kind of tapped into that thing that started in 1931. The ripples from it, you're downstream by nearly 100 years, but it's still. You're still kind of part of that current now, which is pretty fascinating, really. It'd be really interesting to see where it goes in terms of, kind of, has your life changed at all since you started with the Gef stuff? Has it changed how you think? Or
do you think about reality any differently, or the way in which things are connected?
I think I probably do. I think it's probably changed all of us a little bit that have been out to the Isle of Man and kind of looked into the case. So I think we're definitely looking at things maybe more open-minded. And definitely about, reality and existence. And so, I do think it's changed us a little bit. I think that's probably an ongoing adventure, journey, quest, whatever you want to call it. And I don't think we're there yet. Whether we go anywhere, I don't know. But I think there's definitely, like you say, that ripple effect that you can feel.
Yeah. You're on that road.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're on that road. And it's like one of the effects you might think with something like Gef would be that it makes you, or not just you, but the reader or the person who experiences him, reconsider the whole idea of like ghosts or monsters or whatever, because it's like it makes you think more outside the box in them terms, because just like me reading it as an 8-year-old boy or whatever, in this book full of ghosts that were all in white sheets or skulls or spooky things, you had this like funny little guy, this little weasel, just like, you know.
And when you see things like your 171 synchronicities and things like that, it becomes just a really strange thing. The weirdest thing about Gef wasn't necessarily that he was a talking mongoose. It's that nearly 100 years later, you're getting weird hits off the English Kabbalah and all that
absolutely.
Sort of thing. It's mind-blowing.
It's funny, actually. I've just thought, when we left the Isle of Man this year, because when we've left in the past, I've been so sad to leave. And, you know, you just do not want to go home. But this year felt a little bit different. And I was sad to leave, don't get me wrong. But it felt like we'd learned all this stuff, and I don't know what this stuff was, but it was like the Isle of Man had given us a lesson. Now go home, put it into practice, and then come back next year and, you know, do whatever. And I said that to Ben on the ferry, and he kind of said, yeah, actually, I kind of feel the same way. So, yeah, that does make sense. It is an ongoing journey.
I think I've worked out what's happening here. I've got a theory, right? So Greenfield is like, the Newkirks are taking too long with Hellier season 3. I'm going to take matters into my own hands. Hellier season 3, the Gef files, and it's like a whole new cast, new location, and so this is basically Greenfield's next magical working via the medium of television. There's going to be a film crew soon. You'll meet some guy with a camera who'll be like, "Oh yeah, I can make films," and then before you know it, there'll be people starting podcasts based on your experiences.
Nothing would surprise me when it comes to that mongoose. Nothing.
And there's the episode title right there. Shall we move away from Gef now? I think we've given Gef a good seeing to, haven't we?
Bless him.
We solved that one.
Yeah, we've solved that one. It's all Greenfield. He retroactively went back to the 1930s and
impression of
well,
the mongoose.
do you know, in his email to me, I can't remember if I sent you a copy, but he does mention that he's been interested in the Isle of Man for a long time, and there's stuff going on in the mines and things, so, you know, you could be onto something there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me at all. Nothing surprises me with that man. Little call back there to 2 minutes earlier in the episode. Very professional podcasting. I was thinking it'd be interesting to hear a little bit about your. You mentioned that you're going to be doing a talk relating to Aleister Crowley and H.P. Lovecraft. Obviously, we don't want any spoilers, but can you give us like a brief idea of what that might relate to? Or?
Yes.
And the event as well that you...
So you made me laugh in your intro, actually. So I am talking at the Lapis conference in the 22nd and 23rd of November this year, which is at Lytham St Anne's. And I can't tell you what Lapis stands for because the second and the third letter of those words, I can't say them and I can't pronounce them.
Yeah. So, oh, God. Anomalous.
I can't do it. Yeah. So, it's no good. So don't ask me to... Yeah.
Lapis.
Yeah, just call it lapis.
They've got a really good anagram. Yeah. Like, have you seen the actual crystal of a lapis? If you Google lapis, the first thing that comes up is unfortunately not the paranormal investigation thing. It's a really beautiful rock. And I spent a good couple of minutes looking at that before I actually looked at the actual lapis.
Yes.
So people can have a little treat when they're looking up lapis for it to find out what you're doing.
Well, thankfully,
get two for the price of one there.
Thankfully, the person who kindly does our show notes for us is the best in the business, so I'm sure that he'll link the crystals as well as the research. Sorry, Gayle, I've done what I always do to everyone and just gone off on a big tangent.
It's fine.
Please carry on.
There is a conference the 22nd and 23rd of November at Lytham St Anne's in Lancashire. That is Lancashire.
Yeah, it's Lancashire. Yeah.
And I think the Lapis conference has been going for years and years and years. It's a really good conference for anybody that kind of tickets are on for sale now. So, go on the website.
Yeah.
It's got a really good social aspect. So, you can come along, meet people, socialise, like-minded people. And I will be speaking there. And my talk is called The Owls Are Not What They Seem. So I've got a bit of a David Lynch,
Nice.
yeah,
of course.
I've got to have him in there because he had such a big influence on me and why and the weirdness. It's all Twin Peaks related. So I think the kind of premise of it is that we just need to, like you were saying before, not everything is a ghost. Not everything is a nuts and bolts UFO, or a ghost isn't necessarily just the spirits of the dead. So it's kind of looking at other stuff and maybe just a little bit of an introduction to stuff that people might not have thought of. So some of the Crowley stuff.
Yeah.
I'll be talking about the cipher. I've got to get some Jack Parsons in there because, I love a bit of Parsons.
Yeah.
And what else am I talking about? Some H.P. Lovecraft, very Kenneth Grant influenced because Kenneth Grant has a big influence on Mark Frost, so we connect back to the Twin Peaks side of things. So it's kind of just a whistle-stop reel introduction to kind of a bit of a magic tour, really, of some weirdness that maybe people haven't thought about when they're looking into some of these cases.
No, that's great. Yeah, especially since you're doing it at what's basically a UFO conference.
Yeah.
It's not a magic conference. So
Absolutely.
a lot of these people won't have heard of and won't have considered. You're actually kind of making that link, which I think is a really good thing.
What made you choose that topic?
I have no idea. I don't know.
Greenfield.
Yeah.
Greenfield came to you in a dream.
One and the same.
Yeah, we'll blame Jeff.
Yeah. Have you ever had any experience with magic, if you don't mind talking about it or anything like that? Have you ever practiced it? Or?
I do. I have a daily practice, so that I do, or I try to do every day. I think I would say if I had to link to one thing, it would be Thelema, but I'm not a Thelemite. I just kind of, it appeals to me and Crowley's stuff, and definitely when you go down the Typhonian route and some of Kenneth Grant's work, links in a lot to my life and kind of stuff that's happened and stuff. So I do have a bit of a practice.
Do you understand the Kenneth Grant stuff?
Yeah, I'm too stupid for Kenneth Grant.
I've only tried small amounts and it completely baffles me.
Do you know, I've read all of the Typhonian trilogies, and I think the thing that really connected me to it was when I would read through and I go, oh my God, that was such an influence on Mark Frost. And there would just be something in there that you see because I'm such a big Twin Peaks nut. So that's probably why I've really connected with it and kind of stuck with it.
I think with Grant, I know we one of our, I think he was before your time, one of our Discord members, Baz, who unfortunately died. Was it last year when Baz died? Before.
It was nearly 2 years now. Yes,
end of 2023. Yeah. He died, but he was a huge fan of Kenneth Grant.
God rest you, Baz.
And I used to say to him because I've got a couple of Kenneth Grant books. I was like, I think I'm going to sell them because I tried reading them and I just couldn't get my head into them, and it just felt like there was a lot of stuff I didn't understand. And you sort of told us that was kind of the point. It puts you in a weird space when you're reading it, and it's like half of the stuff he's saying is just made up, but he's talking about it as if it's real, scare quotes, and it's like that's sort of the point. And we come back to this time and time again with this kind of stuff, with the occult, with ufology, with magic and all of this. It's about getting yourself into these nuanced in-between liminal places with ideas.
We were talking about at the very beginning about how Twin Peaks first put you into that state. I know that I found myself in a similar state from things like Eraserhead and Mulholland Drive. Things where
You don't
Lost
quite
Highway.
understand.
Well, I don't quite understand it, but there's a vibe to it.
Yeah, and it's like it's almost like that puts you in a place where art comes from.
Yeah.
Now I think about it, it reminds me of like listening to instrumental music or orchestral music, without any words or narrative or story to grab onto.
Yeah.
When I listen to like orchestral music and it's in weird time signatures and I don't even know what every single instrument that's being played is, but I can still enjoy it and pick up on the vibe of it and get emotion out of it without fully understanding what it is, without a narrative or even a spoken component to it. I don't know.
I would totally agree with that. Just after David Lynch died, we went on a bit of a Lynch marathon and we watched some of the stuff that I hadn't seen. So we watched Mulholland Drive, because I tried to stay away from stuff because I was such a big Twin Peaks fan. And then we watched Inland Empire and I was like,
it's fucked up, that
what
film.
have I just... But it gave me this feeling. It was like, okay, I have no idea what I've just watched, but it definitely put me into this weird headspace. It was like, whoa, like...
Yeah.
And that opens up something, definitely.
Yeah, that in a way, that is it. The feeling of being on the cusp of understanding something, but not quite understanding it, is actually a really interesting place.
Yeah.
In terms of what it can do to you creatively. And then I guess that leads itself then, if you're a magic practitioner, that's the same, because magic and creativity are very similar, then that's like it has like a similar effect. Because I think like I always bring things back to music, but like when there's a new type of music I discover, when I say I discover, obviously it's already been discovered. I'm not some kind of archaeologist, but if something's new to me and I don't know how it's made, and I'm listening to it and I'm like, what the fuck is this? And there exists for a few days or months or however long it takes me to work out how this music is made, this really special place for me where this music really holds magic for me. And then I just keep studying it and listening to it and reading about it and working out. And then once I find out how it's made, it kind of loses that a little bit. And you just wonder, is that what Kenneth Grant is like? Is it putting you in that place where you don't quite understand it, and that sort of sets your brain on edge in such a way that it can make you more creative or make you dream more or something like that?
I think so.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's kind of like where I was going to with the classical music. Like I don't understand it, I couldn't make it myself, and I get the same with like big band jazz music or something like that. Something that in a million years I could never write music like that, and I couldn't really profess to understand it. But it does something to my brain, like it sort of inspires me in a way, and makes me feel creative, even though it isn't something that I could actually create myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that I quite like about Grant as well is he changes his mind on stuff. So he'll tell you a theory about something, and then in a later trilogy, it's like, that's not what you said. But actually, that's all right, because he's developing as he's going along as well. And actually, that's a really important lesson, that it is all right to kind of experiment with this stuff and change your mind, change your opinions, mess about with it,
Yeah, he was a bit loosey-goosey, wasn't he?
We usually ask our guests, Gayle, if there's any recommendations they can give us that our listeners might enjoy or that might connect to what we've talked about with you tonight. So, there's any books or films or TV shows or music or podcasts or anything like that you can recommend to our listeners?
Yeah, so I'm going to have to recommend the Folklands podcast because the guys came out to the Isle of Man with us and they've done 2 Manx episodes so far. I think they've got another one coming out very soon and they are beautiful. They really go into the folklore. So definitely give them a listen if you're interested in the Manx folklore. Yeah. Definitely worth it.
Sounds great.
And there's a new book that I've just recently bought. It's called Prospero's Isle by John Callow. I don't know if you've come across John Callow. He does quite a few talks on witchcraft and magic. And it's all about Gerald Gardner and the Witch's Mill in the Isle of Man.
Yeah.
So it talks about the history of Wicca and how it kind of evolved on the island and the museum before it moved, because that was the original Museum of Witchcraft before it moved to Boscastle. So that's a really good book for anybody that's kind of got a magical interests in the history of witchcraft, especially in England. And film-wise, last week I watched I Know Catherine the Log Lady that's just come out. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It was amazing. It is such a beautiful documentary to Catherine Coulson. And her last few days as she kind of filmed the return. I can't recommend it enough. It really impacted me, actually. It's a beautiful piece of filmmaking and a really good tribute to her as well.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. Just wait 1 second. I have a book. One second. We can cut this in the podcast.
No, I'll leave it in. So listeners, Hine has just stood up to find a book from his massive, towering bookshelf.
That's an impressive bookcase. That is very impressive.
It is.
It might not even be relevant, this. I think we're going to have to cut this.
Since when has relevancy mattered?
Because my brother bought me a book.
So listener, he's now climbing this mountain of books, like tossing them aside like, I don't know.
I have bookshelf envy.
Yeah, it is a bit good, that.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it now. I can't really find
This is brilliant. This is gold. This is podcast gold.
Oh, come on, Hine. Where are you? Oh, God.
We need to put loads of like sound effects in, like of sort of, things falling down, like clangs and bangs.
Springs going on.
Yeah, boing.
Just give me 2 more minutes and if I can't find it.
2 minutes, like 2 entire minutes. So, Gayle, whilst he's doing that, did you mention on? I'm sure you mentioned at some point you're reading the Stargate conspiracy.
Oh yeah, forgot about that. Yes,
it's good, isn't it?
It is really good. I finished it now. Actually, I really enjoyed it. But that was a weird. That was another weird synchronicity that I had. Which goes back to Greenfield, actually. So I had discovered through various unsavoury characters that I was looking into on the Isle of Man, and some of their rich family connections. I learned about the Council of Nine, and I hadn't really heard of them before. Yeah. And kind of did some digging on that, and I ended up Vayse. Actually, I think somebody had recommended it on Vayse, the Stargate conspiracy. So I ended up. Was it you? So I ended up getting a copy of that. Yeah, and so this was one of the synchronicities that I had with Greenfield. So I was kind of reading that book, and I went to bed one night and I had this dream. And in this dream, I dreamt about... he hasn't fallen off. I dreamt about
I don't think so.
Chillingham Castle and a building with the name... It began with Sand. And that was all I could remember when I woke up. And I thought, that's a bit weird because there was all this Greenfield stuff going off with Chillingham at the time. So I started Googling like old castles and things in the area that could begin with the word sand. And I was like, no idea. Nothing's kind of popping up. And then that evening I picked up my copy of the Stargate Conspiracy. And the very page that I was on talks about a guy called John Whitmore, who was very influential with the Nine. And he was a racing car driver and a life coach, I think. And he ended up putting a lot of money into the foundation that was studying it. I think he blew a lot of his money on it, actually. But he was educated at Sandhurst. And I thought, okay, that's a weird connection. So we Googled him, and I thought, I'm going to Google him to see if he's got any connections to the Isle of Man. And the first thing that came up was the fact that he had lived there on the island. He had a house there. Yeah, it gets weirder.
Oh,
no,
that's
it gets
amazing.
weirder. So I went outside. My husband was sat in the garden, and I told him, and Ben was like, yeah, that's weird. And I said, look, if I go on Google and if I find out there's a connection with this guy in Chillingham Castle after I had this weird dream about Chillingham and Sandhurst, I jokingly said, like, that's it, I'm done. I'm not investigating this stuff anymore.
Yeah.
And Ben went on Google and instantly went white as a sheet, kind of all his hairs came up on his arms, and he was like, you're not going to believe this. I was like, what? And he was like, this guy was a racing car driver, Whitmore. His racing car team was called the Border Reivers, which are based up just over the Scottish border near Chillingham in a village called Churnside.
Right.
But his racing car partner was a guy called Jim Clark, who I'd never heard of until 2 years ago when we were staying up at Chillingham Castle, and one of the friends that was with us asked us if we would take him to a specific cemetery because he was named after Jim Clark and he wanted to go and visit his grave. So there was just all these weird synchronicities.
It's mad. It's mad how much stuff comes back to the nine.
Yeah.
Like they had their fingers. There was all sorts of weird things. Have you read Sinister Forces?
No, because it's really expensive and I need to get a copy. It's on my list of things that I need to do.
Yeah, I think I try to think where I got it from. I think I paid about 12 quid for it.
That's good.
It wasn't that expensive. I think I got it from. I think I ordered it from Waterstones, from like the Waterstones website.
Oh, I'll have to have a look because every copy I've seen has been about 60 quid.
Yeah, this was like a couple of years ago, but it was it's worth reading for this. There's loads of cool stuff about the nine and that, just the whole synchro mystic kind of stuff like coming together. I mean, I don't know what his agenda is. He's a pretty interesting guy.
I can't figure him out. I've just been reading another book of his, and I can't remember what it's called. But it's about another code in the Book of the Law.
Is it the Dark Lord?
What's it called?
He's written one called the Dark Lord that's it's not that Crowley
one.
Lovecraft.
It's called
connection.
I can't remember, but anyway, it's another code that they'd found within the Book of the Law that relates to a specific number, the golden mean.
Right. Okay.
Which is quite interesting, but Lavender.
Yeah.
I can't figure him out. I'm not sure about. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Hine is back now.
Couldn't find it. I was looking for a book that my brother had bought me. I was going to, but it doesn't matter. It was to do with which museum. Well, the moment's gone. The moment's gone.
That was such a disappointment. I mean, me and Gayle had a nice chat, and we'll keep that in the podcast.
Yeah. No, it sounded really great. You know, I was enjoying listening. Like I was listening.
It was
to
good.
A
There was gold in there.
I was arranging my books over there.
Yeah.
So what I'll do is I'll find the book and I'll send you both a picture on Discord.
Thank you.
So, to pick up where I left off. What's next for you, Gayle? What's your plan to continue the Gef investigation, to continue working the case and so on? When you next out there, and when's your appearance at Lapis, and where can people find you?
Yeah, so we're back in the island. We've just booked it this week, actually. We're back in the Isle of Man next May, so we'll be going out there for another week, staying at the house that we always stay in, which is Airy Cushlin, which is the mongoose house, where the mongooses were released from. Yeah, it's an amazing house. You can rent it as a holiday rental, so yeah, it's just such a cool place. So yeah, we're back out there next year to do. Well, I don't even know what happens. We've got to a point where we just don't make any plans when we go there now. It's just see what happens and let it do its stuff, I guess. And I'm at the Lapis conference on the 22nd and 23rd of November. So I've promised the guys that I'll do a big plug for tickets. So yeah, just check it out online. There's some great speakers there.
Yeah.
And
yeah, we'll link to it in the show
perfect,
notes.
thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm not really a big social media person, so you can get me on email or you can get me on Facebook. I've got stuff on Spooky Owl's website. I've got some stuff. There's some stuff on the Lapis website about Gef that I've done. Yeah.
But we'll link to all that so our listeners can
links will be
further
in the show notes. And if anyone wants to find any more Vayse, you can find us on Instagram at Vayse, and then Vayse spelled backwards. So that's at VAYSEESYAV. You can find us on Blue Sky. I can never remember the Blue Sky handle because they're so much longer than everywhere else. But
yeah,
we're Vayse, and
there's
we're
no
on
other
there.
Vases on there.
Yeah, our website's www.vayse.co.uk, and that's where all our episodes are, and that is the place where you can get the complete show notes. You can find us on all the main podcasting platforms, but it's only on our website that the wonderful work of Keith can be found in our show notes. You can email us with any of your thoughts or questions at vaseinfo@gmail.com. We have a Bandcamp with music by our very own Stephen James Buckley, and we also have the soundtrack to the first 2 seasons of Vayse, plus Songs in the Key of Vayse, which was a compilation with some strange people who got together and made some excellent music. You can get us on Ko-Fi if you want to sling us some cash. You can do so through Ko-Fi, and if you give a regular recurring donation, you can join our Discord, which, as I always say, has lots of interesting people doing lots of interesting things.
Do you think people will think that your outro is pre-recorded? I
don't know. I always wonder.
Yeah,
It's just that I've done it so many times.
Yeah, because it's always very consistent, but there's slight changes. So But obviously, Gayle has just seen it read.
Yep.
Live, so she can confirm that it is.
And she's been neither petrified nor mummified.
Yet.
Turned into a pillar of salt. But thank you very much for joining us, Gayle. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you about this.
Yeah, it's been great.
And I'm sorry I couldn't find the book I was looking for. I feel like I've let everyone down. So
you
have
to be honest.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a magnificent segment, record it here on my own, and then ask Buckley to cut it into the final podcast.
Yeah.
But I'm not actually going to do that. It's too much work.
Well, we could. What about we record it and just have it for the Discord only?
Yeah, I don't even know whether the book is relevant.
You don't even know if the book is real, do you?
You can tell
Was
this
there a
time
book?
of day. My ADHD medication's worn off. I can't sit still. I can't even stay in the interview.
You have to go for a little walk.
I have to go for a little look at my books.
Yeah.
But thank you very, very much, Gayle. It's been a real pleasure. I'm so glad that we got to talk to you and that you joined our Discord. And this is it's one of the mysteries that the Gef thing is one of the mysteries that me and Buckley always talk about. And have done really since Vayse started again, and when we were younger as well.
Yeah.
Gef the Talking Mongoose is an absolute classic, and I'm glad that you and your friends are still looking into this and still getting bits off it. It's just great that these sort of mysteries, like Buckley was saying, ripple through the ages and continue. Yeah. And you're now part of that continuum of Gef weirdness.
Yeah, keep us updated as well. Please do. Before you go, I have a question that I'm going to pose to both of you. A discussion, if you like, and maybe it's a discussion where we'd have a bit of a laugh and then we could fade out at the end of the episode, perhaps. That'd be an interesting thing to do, wouldn't it?
It's an original thing to do.
Yeah, we've never done that before. So, Peter, Gayle, what are your favourite talking animals?
Well, it's got to be
aside from Gef.
Yeah, it's got to be Gef.
Aside from
Gef.
Yeah. Do you have?
That's a really, really interesting question. I liked a battle cat from He-Man.
Could battle cat talk?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it, like when he was cringer, he had a very different voice.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I like
when he was battle cat, he was all fierce.
The worm off Labyrinth.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a good
I've forgotten about the worm.
Hello.
Are Muppets animals, do you think? Some of them are. Sure.
Some of them are. If it's a Muppet of a worm, then yes.
Yeah.
If it's a Muppet of an nondescript, I don't know though, because they're like, but you get like a Muppet of a bin or a Muppet of a cabbage, don't you?
Are Muppets high weirdness? Do you think? Are they? I mean, if you
Yeah,
saw a Muppet
absolutely.
in the street, would you? Yeah. Because they're all quite unique as well, aren't they? You don't get many of any particular variety of Muppet.
And they make you think.
They do make
Like
you think.
they change
Like
your
the ones from Sesame Street.
yeah, they change your perspective.
They taught me language.
Yeah. So Gayle, we still need a.
Oh God, I can't. I
from you.
know. I can't think. You've put me on the spot. I don't know.
Yeah,
this is
it's
no
okay.
good.
We can wait. We've had longer. We've had
I've got
longer
books again. You can,
We've had
you
longer
can tell me in
breaks.
half an hour if you want.
I've weirdly got Paddington in my head, and I have no idea where Paddington came from.
Yeah, he's a
I don't know.
talking animal.
He's
He
a talking
counts.
animal. He's a bear.
Yeah.
I don't know. Where's that come from?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think he's from London.
It's not though,
No,
is he? It's
deepest,
Peru.
darkest Peru.
Yeah.
Is he from Peru?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Deepest,
Sorry.
darkest Peru.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Damn.
I can tell you a story about Basil Brush. So my friend is a costume maker, and she got commissioned to make Basil Brush a costume. I think he was doing panto. So she was really excited because Basil Brush had to be delivered to her studio. So she was really excited that she was going to get actual Basil Brush. And this box turns up.
Right.
And she opens the box, and Basil Brush is just a head and a coat hanger. And she was so upset. It was just a head. Yeah.
Is that like some sort of gangland thing?
Yeah,
like
like a horse's head.
Yeah.
See, Gayle now is seeing what happens when we record. It's not all gold. What happens is
when
we
the
just
laughter
riff.
stops.
We just
Like-
we just riff for ages.
This is the
And then
last
edit
30
it.
years. You're getting a glimpse into the last 30 years.
Yeah. Right, I'll stop the recording now.
Vayse.